and welcome to today's 18 Group webinar on the future of the desktop, optimizing the user experience. My name's Sarah Underwood. I'm an editor here at 18 Group, and I'll be moderating today's webinar. Our expert speakers today are AJ Mehta, Global Head of Engineering for Connect OS at JP Morgan, Pranita Newville, Research and Portfolio Management Sales Director, Northern Europe at Refinitiv and LSEG Business, Scott Besner, Senior Director, Desktop Product Manager at ICE, and Dan Schleifer, Co-founder and CEO at Customised. I'll ask them to introduce themselves in a minute, but just a bit of info for you first. To the right of your video screens, you'll see our Slido panel. We'll have, you should see a panel session, with poll questions and then a Q&A area. We'll be running 3 audience polls today, so they'll appear in that half of the panel. And in the Q&A section, please do ask your questions, put them there just as soon as you want to, and we'll take them as we go along and take as many as we can that way. So I'll let you know when there are polls coming up, and we'll take as many questions as we can. Excellent. So enough from me, and let me come over to our speakers, and let me come first to AJ. Please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your interest here.
Sure. I lead the engineering team for our internal financial desktop product in the wealth business. We call that Connect OS, and that's something that enables our modernization and also allows us to reunify the user experience across decoupled applications built by agile teams and different vendor solutions that we bring in. So I've been with JP Morgan for 16 years. I've grown up within the organization. I've worked on a variety of different products. Prior to the Connect platform, I led the technology group for structured products and syndicates within our private banking and wealth businesses, and I helped build our brokerage trading platform. So I've seen a lot in terms of how we try to optimize the experience and what's evolved over the years. So it's going to be really fun to talk about this topic.
Okay, great. Coming to you, Scott.
Yeah, hi, Scott Besner. I am Senior Director of Desktop Product Development here at ICE. I run the desktops for a bunch of different areas of the ICE community, but I do think the one thing that I'm most excited about is, much like what AJ was just saying, we're really taking this holistic view of our desktop platforms, and I'm at the center of a lot of that. So really looking forward to this discussion.
Okay, Pranita.
Hi, Sarah. Hi, everyone. So I've been with Refinitiv for about 6 years now. I joined them in Johannesburg, we're currently based in London. And before joining Refinitiv, and back then they were actually known as Thomson Reuters, I worked on the sales side as a research sales head of desk for about 10 years for a brokerage firm. So very much on the user side of the desktop back then, and then moving across to more of the vendor space. So from our perspective, we've launched our next generation desktop, which is called Workspace. And it gives users, a highly customized workflow experience while enabling them to work faster on their preferred device, whether it be at home or in the office. And what's really exciting for us is being able to launch this new technology where, clients can access still everything that they love from Refinitiv and have a newer stack of technology on their systems, and also be able to access it anywhere they are on the globe, whether it be on their iPads or their phones or their laptop.
Okay, thank you. And over to you, Dan.
Thanks. Thank you, everyone, for joining. I'm Dan Schleifer. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Customised. We're known for our 2 products, Chart IQ for pre- and post-trade visualization, and then notable for today's conversation, Finsample, which is a leading desktop interoperability platform used by both the buy side and the sell side, as well as the vendor community to implement desktop interoperability. We also co-chair FDC3, which is the industry standard communications protocol for desktop interoperability. So we've really been at the center of the desktop interoperability movement for the past 6 years or so, and looking forward to today's conversation.
Thank you. Thank you all very much indeed. And we will get going with that conversation. But first, let's run an audience poll to see where our audience is. The question is, to what extent has your trading organization modernized its desktop environment? So while you answer that question, let me come to Scott to set the scene and share his views on trading organizations' current desktop and workflow environments.
Yeah, thank you. You know, here at ICE, we've grown over the years, you know, not only organically, but by acquisitions. With some of those acquisitions comes desktop applications built in their respective technologies. And, you know, recently we've put a real strong emphasis on the user experience, improving on not only the technology, but the overall customer interactions. You know, we've been taking, as I said before, a very holistic approach to the offerings, you know, firm-wide to bring consistency to the workflows. We've been seeking to meet the needs of our users' end-to-end workflow, which may extend beyond the desk, and Pranita kind of touched on that. From the start of their morning, where users are on a mobile device, you know, they're researching the market before they even arrive at their desks, and allow them to seamlessly transition to their desktop. You know, these past 2 years, you know, have affected everybody's life, but it also had a major effect on how users work. And, you know, every organization needs to be able to respond and adapt to that.
Okay, AJ, what would you add to that?
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. So I think, you know, we've been on a journey to kind of decouple our prior monoliths for about 6 years now. And, you know, I think within organizations and even within our organization, you're going to find certain areas where things are really far down that digital transformation journey, and things are really seamless for specific workflows, for specific users or asset classes. But as different groups are on different levels of this journey, you may find areas which are still in the middle of the journey or need to start it. You know, some challenges which you may see, kind of two challenges which kind of occur, is either you haven't started and you're in this ossified monolithic environment where there's risk to making changes. Maybe you haven't really decoupled, but it's just hard to make any changes. Or you've kind of gone down the path, you've used microservices, you've used cloud providers, and you've decoupled your environment, and it's great technically. You can make changes quickly, and you have a great kind of technical environment, but you may have a fragmented user experience. The users may be using lots of different apps, and you know, that's another kind of problem. So like, I think that's probably what we're going to talk about, some of these challenges and how we can solve them.
Exactly that. Thank you very much indeed. And may we see the poll results, please? Lovely. Thank you very much indeed. Scott, would you like to comment on that?
I am not surprised that, you know, everybody is trying to take that step to, you know, modernizing the desktop. And, you know, there's a bunch of third parties out there, and Mr. Schleifer's organization is one that, you know, we've spoken to help with a lot of that. There is a lot of bespoke technology out there that, you know, just like AJ said, we're working also on decoupling them and trying to then bring back into a concise workflow for the user. So it's good to see that you know, there are firms out there, you know, trying to take those steps as well, and hopefully everybody on this call can help.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. So let's move on and let me bring in Pranita. Pranita, how do you see the trading challenges of the sorts of setups and drivers of change that AJ and Scott spoke about?
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. So, I mean, the technological advancements of the past 20 years have proven to be a blessing for financial markets. There's definitely a general belief that technology as a whole has made markets better and more efficient. Changes in how the desktop is used continue to unfold at a rapid pace as portfolio managers and analysts and also traders around the world find themselves having to adapt quickly to emerging technologies, the move towards automation, and the need to also demonstrate best execution, superior stock picking skills, and the ability to generate alpha for their clients. So the data challenge is incredibly more complex than it first appeared. And those firms that effectively and consistently aggregate and normalize huge quantities of data become tremendously valuable in an environment such as this. So banks, exchanges, and the vendors have made the most progress developing AI-driven solutions, is what we are seeing at the moment. Their AI investment is expected to be most impactful for the analysis of structured and unstructured data, as well as execution algorithms, both of which can ultimately help broker-dealers provide better services to their customers at a lower cost, right? So this is driving a change in also who gets employed in these types of organizations. And for a while now, there's been a clear shift to firms hiring PhDs in physics, statistics, and data science into roles that would have normally and previously been occupied by finance majors. And interestingly, also, it would seem as if asset managers and hedge funds have taken a bit of a back step with regards to AI development in comparison to banks, exchanges, and vendors. It's certainly what the experience that we've been having. There's a significant upfront cost and technology risk inherent in building cutting-edge solutions. And these are just costs and risks that the buy side would have to pass on to their clients, which is less than ideal in the current environment. So given the fee pressures and the tough market conditions the buy side is facing at the moment, letting their vendors and trading counterparties actually make the investment here is probably a very smart move.
Okay, thank you. Dan, what would you say in terms of the challenges of the way things are at the moment and the drivers of change?
I think to Fernita's point, the investment that's been made over the past couple of decades in technology has undoubtedly, propelled the industry forward. As technologists, we've solved every problem with the new application, and in that process, we've created a new set of problems for our users, which is that they have individual applications to solve individual problems. I was recently facilitating a roundtable discussion of buy-side heads of fixed income, and one of traders tend to be a bit blunt, to put it lightly, referred to his traders as copy-paste monkeys, right? And it stuck with me in my head, right? He's got really bright fixed income traders that know more about the markets than I ever will. Their job is to work with the portfolio managers and find liquidity and hopefully, to Fernita's point, find alpha. But in the end, their workflow is so fragmented because we've delivered so many applications to solve so many individual problems that they're spending a lot of their time doing basic context switching, copying and pasting, going out to different applications in different systems to try to find liquidity, find best price, and execute their trades. And so I think, what Scott kind of talked about, and AJ as well, which is kind of this decoupling. How do we create loosely coupled applications that allow us to deploy and make changes very quickly and be nimble and responsive to the business? But at the same time, much like we kind of decoupled or deaggregated our cable television subscriptions, and now we need a Roku box to bring it all back together so I have one place to search and try to find the show I want to watch and not have to log into Netflix and log into YouTube and all these different things. We then need technology and a process framework for then bringing those applications back together and building the kinds of integrated workflows that users want and need, but doing so with kind of these micro front ends, with these loosely coupled applications that themselves can be quickly innovated. They can be replaced by vendor applications. You can kind of mix and match, but still give that cohesive user experience. And I think Scott spoke to that well, as far as that focus on UX, which has not been traditionally a big focus in our industry. You only have to kind of close your eyes and imagine a trading floor and think of traders with 6 or 8 monitors, which for the longest time has been seen as kind of almost a badge of honor. But in reality, that's the problem. If our users need another monitor and they need more applications, that's our fault, and we need to start fixing it by thinking about the user and the workflows in the user journey, and not just how does my team build the capabilities in the application that I'm responsible for and push it out.
Okay, Scott, so taking your crystal ball out now, supposing there was enough budget and resources to hand, what would be the optimal desktop environment and user experience for trading organizations, and what benefits would it deliver? Once we've sort of made this lovely picture, we'll look into the practicalities of doing some of these things. What would be?
Yeah, I was going to say that's like every product manager's dream, give me enough budget and resources to do all I want done. Like, I wish. But in all seriousness, if there was such a scenario, the optimal desktop environment would be this lightweight technology providing fewer access points to the combined data and workflows, right? this allows the user then to create the desktop they desire. And, it sounds like, oh, that, maybe you don't need that much budget for that. But when you look at an organization like ICE, or probably like Fernita's or even AJ's, and you look at all the different data that's out there and all the different applications that are out there, trying to bring all of that together takes a lot of time, a lot of budget, a lot of resources that, you can't sit there and say, okay, I want to stop building out and, progressing on different new ideas and in the industry. But at some point, you need to take that step and make sure that you allocate enough to get to where you want to go. And so that would be my dream if I had enough budget to do that, for sure.
Okay. AJ, what would your dream here be?
Yeah, so optimally, what you want to do is you want to decouple your technical environment while still having a unified user experience. So the decoupling of the environment, that's important, and that's something that is happening across all industries with microservices, micro front ends, the ability for us to set up infrastructure really fast with cloud providers. And if you do that, you yield benefits of this investment. You're able to deliver capabilities and respond to users' needs very rapidly. And you're able to do that with low risk. So you can put things in production. You can use canaries. You can give it a subset of users. But that's not enough. So you have to, when you decompose your environment, just like Dan mentioned with like Roku, like you have to be able to put it back together again. And it's happened over and over again. If you look at all sorts of industries where like albums, like CDs, we used to buy CDs, and then now we open up Apple Music or Spotify, and there's like a playlist that's auto-generated through some algorithm. So, we have to be able to create a seamless user experience, and leveraging desktop solutions, integration solutions helps with that, using a design system implementation, so a UI toolkit, so that all of the screens are consistent, especially the ones that you're able to build internally. And then to really get to that next level, as Fernita mentioned, you need to, just like how we've been optimizing trade execution using AI and intelligence, you can optimize personalization. So a lot of the apps that we use in consumer products, there's so much data. And when you open it, usually you don't even have to search. It kind of searches, and the query string is you. So I know who my user is. They logged in. I can serve them the most relevant content when they need it, depending on what's happening in the markets, where they are in the workflow. There's certain times when risk activities are more important. So at those moments, we surface those. So that's kind of getting to that next level, more than just having them click around. The system is suggesting and recommending, what they should be doing next. And I think ideally, if we've done it right, users don't even realize they're using multiple apps. They just feel like they're using one app, and under the hood, we have this technical decoupling, but they have a seamless navigation through all of their workflows.
Okay, fantastic. Let's see if we can get that today. But let's take a step back first, and let's run another audience poll if we may. This time, the question: what are the challenges of reviewing and renewing the desktop environment at your organization? And there are multiple answers, and this time you can tick as many of the boxes as you feel are appropriate. And while you do that, let me come back to Fernita, please, to talk about how trading organizations can approach a major review and renewal of the desktop environment and what challenges they'll face along the way.
Sure, Sarah. So organizations will obviously first have to determine what they really want to look like at the end of such a review and renewal process. I mean, bearing in mind that this will probably have to be reviewed on a continual basis with the current pace of change in the way that we work at the moment. So nevertheless, from a trading and research perspective, desktops need to be harnessed shifting trends as firms want to quickly adopt AI-driven tools and coding into their trading and investment workflows. Desktops need to be able to deal with the big data challenge and turn sophistication and complexity into, a single platform. I think, as everyone has been saying on this call, especially AJ previously, that actually reduces friction across workflows and recognizes the elements of consistency among them. So desktops need to deliver streamlined workflow tools so traders and analysts can generate their profitable investment ideas and improve their portfolio returns. And it also needs to give access not only to data available, on every vendor's desktop, but also to proprietary data. We've seen that, that this is what clients really need, such as research, for instance, and predictive analytics to help traders and analysts generate smart ideas from the smart data that they get. So finally, traders and analysts are now also coders, and desktops need to give them the capability to code through giving them access to APIs and platforms, services to build analytics and applications and other tools critical to their workflow needs that they actually, want to create themselves as well. And all of this then needs to be available wherever the trader or analyst finds themselves. We've already said, how important, it is, mobility is, and a mobile and a web version for what you're delivering. And then once they have established how their desktop environment will be dictated by the above trends, then organizations should choose a vendor or vendors for that matter, who will be their partner and as part of the journey and who they will be able to actually form a long-term relationship with and who can advise them. And I think also that if they can't deliver the end-to-end solution that's required, is actually, has an open platform where, they can partner with other vendors and there's an interoperability seamlessly in the background, for organizations to feel as if they, don't have two separate vendors, but one vendor actually delivering the services that they need. A major challenge will be, of course, how to deal with changes that usually goes hand in hand with automation, such as the requirement of a different set of skills that we've already mentioned, which is coming into the market at the moment. And in the end, it will all come down to, how the desktops are deployed and customized and the people that are put in place to actually take those desktops to the future.
Okay, lovely. Scott, what would you say there? It can be an enormous job for an organization to review and renew. How would you suggest going about that?
Yeah, great question. First things first, know your customers, right? Speak to your customers, understand their needs and their workflows. As we began evaluating our current desktop environment, we actually created user personas across our platform, and we actively interacted with them. We didn't simply speak with them. We literally observed them in their day-to-day activities to understand how we could improve upon what we had delivered them in prior versions. My team worked really hard, not only just to clean up those user interactions, but to reduce the redundancy across applications. We combined similar functions into like one widget, as we call them here. That reduced the number of screens that they had to dedicate to a similar function, and it helped the users deal with the information overload. We helped them cut through the noise, and we're working on really trying to visualize that information that they need to identify those trading opportunities and pertinent information, vital to their decision making. Somebody mentioned it earlier, it may have been Dan, you go out on the trading floor and you see users with 8 different monitors there. That's a lot of information to take in and process, right? So making that data, that timely data that is important to your users and providing a way for them to immediately recognize that information in that sea of information that's being provided to them, that's a big challenge. But it's really, really important to the future of the desktop.
Okay, thank you. May we see the poll results, please? And Franita, perhaps you'd like to comment on these in terms of the challenges that people are experiencing. Yes, good old legacy systems. What do you think, Franita?
Yes, I think that's definitely, just an echo of what we're hearing from the market as well, where firstly, there is a reluctance to some degree from users wanting to move away from their legacy system because it's what they know so well. And, people are reluctant that they don't always want to change. But then also, companies not investing in their offering to bring up a new stack, it's for customers. So that is, I would agree that is probably one of the biggest challenges.
Okay, lovely. And let's run a final poll for today, if we may. And if those are the challenges, the next question is, what are the most important capabilities of a modern desktop platform at your organization? And while you select those, and again, you can select as many as you like, let me come back to Dan to talk about what he sees as the required capabilities of modern desktop platforms. We've talked a little bit about this in many ways, so if you could pull that together for us.
Sure. Yeah, I'll do my best. I think, from my standpoint, there's some technical capabilities, and then there are some organizational capabilities, and they're both very important. So, obviously, the number one response to the poll was legacy systems. Those can't be left out. That is a core requirement from my standpoint of moving to a smart desktop environment, is that legacy, or as I borrowed the phrase, heritage systems, as those systems, they're not going away, and we're not going to end up in an environment where everything on the desktop is brand new, lightweight, web-based, modern. That's not going to happen. It's by the time we get there, there'll be a new technology, and we'll be looking at this stuff as legacy. So a smart desktop strategy has to include, first and foremost, the existing applications that you have, including the legacy applications, whether those are vendor or in-house. I think the second thing really speaks to Scott's point. Obviously, Scott comes at this as a vendor and caring deeply about user experience and being able to watch over the shoulders of users and think about how do they make improvements to those applications to optimize that workflow. One of the capabilities that's required from a technical and organizational standpoint is that, if I'm a portfolio manager, I'm a trader, I'm a researcher, whoever I am, I need to be able to tap somebody on the shoulder, whether it is my cubicle mate who can write code, or it's somebody in the IT department, whether that's embedded into my desk or it's in kind of the IT structure, to say, hey, can you come over here? I do this, that, and the other. They need to be able to look over my shoulder, be able to watch it, and then be able to go off and very quickly turn around an integrated workflow for that. That requires both the technical capabilities of a smart desktop platform that allows people to stop building applications and start building workflows, connect those together. It also requires a bit of an organizational change towards this idea of an agile interaction model between the business and IT. It can't be, I throw a requirement over the fence in a Jira ticket, and 6 months later, maybe something pops out. We need to get to the point that the business trusts IT, that they have the technology infrastructure in place to be able to iterate very, very quickly and deliver maybe not the perfect solution, but an incrementally, directionally correct solution that can evolve and improve over time. The last bit, jump in, one last thing is that, in the past, these kind of desktop interoperability or smart desktop initiatives have been the domain of large companies with a lot of resources. It's been sell-side centric, it's been expensive, it's taken a long time to build and deploy these things. That is changing and has to change, right? We need to move over to a low-code, no-code world of integrating applications. And so I think, the moment that the business sees that you can deploy something, you can customize it and tailor it, and you can do that with a small budget, a small, not particularly technical team, and do it very, very quickly, we start moving into a different operating model that can support those user workflow journeys.
Okay, thank you. Scott, what would you say there in terms of required capabilities? And perhaps some of the ones which we have on our poll might be of interest before we actually see the poll.
First of all, based on my previous replies, you probably can tell how strong I feel about an improved user experience. Without a competent UX, the data means nothing to the user. Interoperability is also important as well. The data shouldn't be, quote, stuck in one area of an application and not be able to use elsewhere. The desktop should make the data available in a way which is meaningful to the user base while still keeping flexibility for users to find, a way which is meaningful to them. Like, for example, our users are sourcing content from multiple sources, right? Obviously, we have the exchange, we have government data, we have social data, we have alt data, so on and so on and so on. And we want to make this content available to them. So we've been working really hard to help users find their desired content, understand that data relationship, and provide curated views for the large number of data sets out there. We don't want them to have to guess. We want to try and provide it to them, serve it up to them so that it it's in a meaningful way for them. I think that's really important.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's see the poll results and see what our audience is saying in terms of what they need. There you are, Scott. You'll be pleased about that. And Dan, would you like to comment on these results?
Yeah,
yeah.
I think.
Sorry.
Dan, do you want to go first, and then Scott come in?
Sorry, Dan.
Yeah, no, I think it's interesting because these are they're very interrelated, right? Without the and I'm probably stealing Scott's thunder here, right? The user experience and mapping out that user journey is critical. I think the comment here about data discovery, right? Data needs to be contextually relevant to where the person is in the workflow at the time. And so when we think about the ability to build integrated, seamless workflows between different applications, it also, to AJ's point earlier, allows us to contextually recommend the right application, the right content, the right data, be that structured or unstructured, at the right point of the user's journey. And so from my standpoint, if you do the user experience right, and you have the underlying technology to do this, things like speed to trade, data discovery, all become part of that experience. And so I'm pleased to see the results here, and I'm guessing Scott would agree.
What did you say, Scott?
I would. And you didn't really steal my thunder, but yeah, this is exactly what I was just speaking about right before you showed the poll results, right? Like data discovery being that second one after user experience, they go hand in hand. And that's what I was kind of speaking to, where we're trying to make all this content available to the users in a way that makes sense to them, help them find that desired content, understand those relationships between the data sets, because there's so many of them out there.
I would briefly cite one example perhaps to kind of make this concrete. We have a client that is basically scraping and putting into a natural language processing engine the chat communications between them and their clients. And when the client mentions something, the natural language processing engine extracts that, identifies what it is that's talking about it, pushes it to the sales trader's desktop. And while the sales trader is communicating back and forth over chat with the client, their screens start updating, showing them the latest liquidity information, the latest research reports, price targets, whatever it is related to the thing that the customer is talking about. So now the salesperson can focus on servicing and talking to their customer, and it's getting pushed to them. It's not data discovery, I have to go out and find it. Contextually relevant information available from their enterprise is being delivered to their fingertips while they're doing their job. Like that's how this stuff comes together when you match user experience, interoperability, and this topic of data discovery.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's move on and look at the kinds of technologies that can help here. AJ, what can help in terms of technology, tools, techniques? Is this just a vendor solution? Is this a build and buy? How do you see this?
Yeah, sure. So there's a lot of things. There's a lot of different tools and techniques that can be used. So I'm going to start focusing on unifying the user experience and some of the things that you can do there. So you can use a desktop integration platform. So Dan has Ensemble with Cosaic. We use Glue, and we've used that for years with Tick42 and have a great kind of partnership with them. And I think things like FTC3 really make you feel comfortable to use a vendor product and leverage that versus rolling your own. And these desktop integration platforms, they allow you to bind together your applications both contextually in terms of data context, but also the UI. And so you can do this regardless of your technical implementation. As Dan mentioned earlier, this allows you to bridge your legacy to your future state. So now you have this bridge and you can improve and get to the ideal state that you want to be in. But interestingly, as soon as you deploy something into production, that thing is within a month or so, it feels like it's legacy, and then allows you to bridge into your future. So you're always bridging to somewhere, whether you're going from the past to the current state, to the current state to the future. That allows you to do that, and while the user is not like going to two different places. For them, it's still one environment. You can also bring best-in-class solutions. Market data is a great one. You can bring that right into your experience, so they don't have to go elsewhere. And there's many other products, many fintechs out there that are providing really great capabilities in specific areas, and instead of rebuilding these things, you can leverage them where they make sense and integrate them seamlessly into the workflow. Beyond desktop integration platforms, it's important for us, learned, is to have a UI toolkit, which implements a design system so that for the developers, it allows them to rapidly build UIs, and for the users, it creates consistency. So they can build muscle memory if they're using a grid or a chart or a form. Everything is consistent across all of the tools that they're using, and that just makes it feel so much easier for them. When they learn one thing, they've basically learned everything in terms of the UI elements and the patterns of how things are put together. Another really important thing, which is behind the scenes but very important, user experience. Like in the user experience hierarchy of needs, reliability is top of mind. Things need to be available, they need to be performant. So it's a top focus, especially if you're doing things in the markets and trading and time sensitive. Interestingly, there's research showing that when the markets are more volatile, the users perceive any sort of slowness or glitch in a completely different way than when they're calm. So you always want to think about, what is your objectives in terms of reliability for every single product, and focus on that. So going into that, I mean, when you like the one side of it is the front end, but you want to unify your IT operations and your reliability engineering as well. And when you decouple things, basically what can happen is that every tool or every app has a different monitoring situation. So you want to bring that together as well. And also by collecting that data, that'll help you later when you want to implement by capturing what the users are doing, you'll be able to use that data to improve the intelligence of your UI. So for monitoring, we like Dynatrace in terms of collecting all the data across our stack. We can even see what's happening on the front end, and they have an AI-powered engine, which allows us to automatically detect problems and also the impacts of those problems and the root causes. Then you have to build in, so once you have a problem, you need to have automation to respond to those problems. Ideally, it should be automatic. In some cases, you made it intervention, but you need a response capability. And something that we're really focused on now is building in service level objectives. So we're focused on data in terms of the user experience versus what people feel. People can have a subjective idea of what, how things are working. But if we focus on data, then we have like a good feedback loop, and we can see the results of our efforts.
Okay, that's a lot, a lot to be doing. Yeah. That's fantastic. Dan, would you like to add briefly to that in terms of particularly just the techs?
Yeah, I think, in the end, your users don't care whether you built it or you bought it. They want something that's going to work for them, that's going to service their needs today. And I think, whether you are, like AJ, you work at a firm the size of JP Morgan, or you're at a small hedge fund or an asset manager, it doesn't matter. Development resources are always difficult to get your hands on. Developers are tough to hire. They're very expensive. And even if you have a lot of them, you have them working on things. And so I always encourage customers to look at what are the core capabilities, the things that are unique to you that you need to build. And that applies whether you're buy side, sell side, vendor. What is your unique differentiator where you can add value to your users? The rest you should be able to get off the shelf. And to AJ's point, his firm uses a competitor to Finsamble. I think that's great. I like those guys. There are great platforms out there to bring this stuff together and allow you to kind of focus on building the valuable workflows, not building infrastructure and plumbing. So I guess that would be my perspective on kind of the build versus buy. I think we're in a bit of a golden era right now where you've got vendors the size of LSEG and ICE and others that have fully embraced interoperability. So whether it's LSEG and ICE, or it's Symphony, or whoever it is, they're supporting FDC3, they're embracing interoperability, they want to help you with this. And so if 90% of your stuff is off the shelf and 10% is in-house built, or the reverse is true, either way, this is something that you can have in days or weeks, not months or years. And that wasn't the case 18 months ago. And so I think now is a great time for folks to kind of be interop curious and see how this can actually change the lives of their users in a very quick time frame.
Okay, fine. That's great. Thank you. Lots and lots to think about. So I do have some audience questions. Let's take a break and take a few of those. For Anita, can I come to you with this one? It's something you mentioned earlier. And it says, over recent years, we have developed a rather mix and match desktop environment. Would it be better to try and standardize on one desktop platform and then customize? How can people deal with that when they've got a huge mixture?
I think it comes down again to choosing your vendor or your vendors that you use quite well, Sarah. So it's important to choose a vendor that gives you the ability to actually customize, desktops according to workflows. So you need to be able to, go to different variants within your vendor's offering. And maybe something lighter is needed for a compliance officer as opposed to a heavy system for a trader. This is not a one size fits all solution that you can run. So it is very important that when you do choose your vendor in the end is to actually find a vendor that can supply you with something that can be changed, something that can be customized for your users specifically. This is part of the reason why we actually built our workspace in conjunction with clients, listening to their feedback. And it's just to be able to give that better user experience and data discovery, as we've mentioned before, and interoperability. But you need to be able to have a system that can be customizable. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck on legacy products that you're not using.
Okay, fine. And Dan, here's one for you. It says modernization is an interesting topic, but where best to start when it comes to desktops in a large multi-asset trading organization?
Yeah, so you can't solve all of your problems. You probably won't ever be able to solve all of them. So it is always a matter of prioritizing, and something that we work with a lot of our clients on. We service buy-side asset managers, they're cross-asset class, and a lot of times they're starting in fixed income because it is so fragmented and hasn't had a lot of the investments that other asset classes have. But even within one asset class, one desk, you have to start prioritizing what are the workflows and the tasks that everybody does all day, and how do I knock that one off the list? And this goes back to that kind of concept of the agile interaction between IT and the business, which is, once you knock number one off your list, number two moves up to number one, right? It's the issue with crossing things off your list. But if you're smart about prioritizing it, and we have clients that do that themselves, we have clients that bring in, consultants to do user experience journey mapping and help with that. But it's really a 1 through N ordered list, and just popping them off the top. And that way you're starting to make a significant impact on the lives of users, maybe not day one, but week one. And then once you've done that, you start earning the trust to say, hey, this is real, this is possible, it's quick and it's cheap. Now I can do number two. And you start gaining momentum, credibility, budget, buy-in, and velocity. And you start being able to not only go through their list, but expand into other desks. So I think, it's not about solving all you're never going to build one system that solves every problem day one, but it's about that ability to kind of quickly work through the list.
Okay. And I think, Scott, this one might be for you. It says, the questioner doesn't say that, I say that, but it says, where does the panel see real competitive advantage in optimizing the user experience, and can it outweigh the financial and cultural cost of change?
Yeah, good question. I think that kind of lays over, the first two questions too, right? Which was, the advantage is bringing that data quicker and more meaningfully to the user, right now, when they're on these bespoke applications across their desktop, they have to look at screen 1 to see one thing, screen 2 to see something else. When you modernize that and use something like interoperability or FTC3, where Dan gave the example of the chat message being parsed and automatically updating other areas of that desktop, seamlessly, it takes steps away from the user. So it does buy them time. So if you are looking in a trading world, when you have to make a really quick decision, especially unfortunately in the last couple of weeks, you don't want to have to look on monitor 1 to see one thing and monitor 5 to see something else. You want to be looking one place and that data is brought right to you. And modernizing the UI, the UX really, really helps that. My team, I have a guy, Kevin, who runs my user experience team here. Him and his team have done a really good job of, like I said before, taking a look at the workflow, right? And making sure that the duplicative work that we see from one application that I run versus another, bringing them into one and making that meaningful to the user right there in their face so that they don't have to go to 2 different applications. You will see a cost benefit for that, and you will see revenue, especially on the trading desk, when they're able to make those decisions really rapidly.
Okay, thank you very much. And one for you, AJ, also. This one asks, what do the panel say about the value of AI and ML to trading desktops? It has been mentioned. Where is the value here?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's there's many areas where you can incorporate it. I think the model of the future is basically, it's not something separate to every application. Like every application will be incorporating it to make whatever the purpose of that application is better. From a broader sense, and when you're thinking about the desktop and the user experience, you can use these techniques to build in recommendations, to build in personalizations. If you know that they're operating in a certain context, then you can bring up the applications that are relevant for them automatically in that moment. Like we're doing things like even so on a base level, that a investor in New York who is in a certain manages a certain wealth tier, we know what applications those types of users use and what their navigation flow normally is. So we can suggest essentially make their default that flow, which we know will work pretty much 90% of the time. And now that individual, as they use it, they're giving us data, and we can continue to optimize the experience for them personally. We'll know what they normally do. Maybe they talk to a certain client every morning at 9:30, right when the market opens, and it's the same client every day. We can see that's happening, and we can, when they open up the screen, everything's there where they need it. That clients come up on the top of the list without even having to search, etc. So these are the types of things you can do. But yeah, there's so much opportunity in that area.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Pranita, I think we answered the question that I was going to ask about customized desktops. Is there anything more to add, really, or I think we've covered that?
No, I think there's nothing really more. I think just to reiterate, it's quite important for users to obviously be given the correct desktop solution according to their workflow, and then to working with the vendor that you choose on that quite closely is important.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Let's move on then. And coming back to you, Dan, how and why will the trading desktop user experience continue to be innovated over the next few years?
I think users are demanding it, right? So people are not satisfied, and I think that you've got a level of dissatisfaction that has been kind of latent for a long time. And now people are starting to see that a different reality is possible and is actually not even that expensive or resource consuming. And so I think when you match kind of that latent demand with this golden era, this moment in technology where you've got industry standards like FTC3, you've got the major vendors in the space going all in on interoperability, you've got shamelessly products like Finsample or our competitors that make it a lot easier to do these things. It's the confluence of events is there, and I think that the momentum is there. And I consistently talk with customers who say, their traders, their wealth managers, their even portfolio managers are younger and younger and are using consumer software. They're They're not the guy who's 60, who's happy with whatever and doesn't want to change and will never change. They expect better technology. And I'm even hearing, whether it's trying to recruit people for the front office or it's trying to recruit developers and tech talent, these firms want to use their technology advantage as a competitive differentiator in the hiring market and in the retention market. So I think the snowball is rolling downhill, and it would be hard to stop at this point. But more than that, so all of that said, and what I think is the inevitability of this movement is that it's delivering real business results, right? We helped a customer shave RFQ response time on the sell side from 45 seconds to 30 seconds. We helped a buy-side fixed income desk take, pricing out and hedging a particular kind of money market trade from a 10 to 15 minute operation to a under 1 minute operation. Like, the results are tangible and real. So I think the inertia is there, but there is underlying business value that can be quantified and used to justify the investments.
Thank you. Pranita, what would you say here?
Yeah, so for research and trading desks to remain relevant in the future, it needs to incorporate cloud computing, big data, and artificial intelligence, just obviously linking also with one of the questions we had a little bit earlier on. So the pace of change is immense and it's just getting faster and faster at the moment. And what is considered normal today would have been, seen as leading edge only 5 years ago. So this fact should really instill excitement in everyone about what we're going to see in the next 3 to 5 years. It certainly does with me, but the desktop experience will continue to be more tailored to the specific workflow of the user while being accessible anywhere through web versions and mobile apps. We're definitely just going to be seeing more of that. And to follow on from one of the audience questions we had earlier on, is the incorporation of AI is vital for a modern desktop. So machine learning as a form of AI gets a large part of the attention, where, for instance, sentiment analysis can play a vital role when an analyst or trader reviews a transcript or a report from a company. And for instance, if you can get live sentiment analysis while a CEO is delivering a speech, this could then be incorporated into a buy or sell indicator into your algorithm for a trading desk. So that's the kind of example where this could be used. Then there's also the ability for a desktop to interact with a coding program such as Python, for instance, which will become more and more important. And whether it be through a desktop API or through a built-in capability, it depends on how the user actually wants to use it. Quantitative analysis will, continue to permeate even fundamentally driven funds, with your more quantamental increasingly becoming the way forward. And desktops are required to support analysts in this role as well. And lastly, also, desktops don't just have to give access to data. They also now need to give access to the right kind of data. And we've spoken a lot, not only in this forum but others, about alternative data and the importance of that, and how increasingly more valuable that is to research and trading processes. But alternative data is only really useful if traders and investors, trust the source and the quality of the data is verifiably high. The entry of several large vendors and fintech firms into this space has and will still further legitimize, even the most unique and unstructured data, luckily, but it needs to be verifiable.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. And finally, coming to my last question here, I'd like to ask all our speakers what advice they would give to trading organizations and practitioners working to modernize desktop platforms and enhance the user experience. We've talked about a lot. If you could all pick out the favorites, the things that you think are probably the most important to get going. Scott, what would you say?
Sure. I would say, number one, become part of the workflow. The desktop should be an ingrained part of the user's daily workflow. And just keep in mind, the world is changing and there's a larger need for communication and collaboration as well. Two, I would say, understand the user problem. What exactly are you trying to solve? Because if you don't know the answer to this, you're probably creating a desktop the user is never going to utilize. And then I would say the third thing, kind of rehashing something I said earlier, which was make the data viewable in a meaningful way. Think outside the box of ways to visualize the data, make key data points stand out, make it easy for the user to get the answer without having to take multiple steps. I think those are my three.
Lovely. And Pranita, what would you recommend?
Yeah, I think some of these are going to tie in with what Scott said, but I mean, firstly, it's to incorporate, if they haven't done so already, you know, all these things that we've spoken about, cloud computing, big data, artificial intelligence into their workflow to ensure they remain competitive and achieve best execution. Secondly, you know, the amount of quality choices available to solve data-related challenges is as high as it's ever been. And it will be very important to actually choose a vendor partner that not only gives you access to cutting edge technology, but who can also be flexible and who is willing to walk along path of growth with you as a client to assess desktop operability. And lastly, it's to ensure that desktops, you know, that they actually have and give to the users are tailored to the users' workflows and give users the access to things like sentiment analysis, as we've already said, through, you know, NLP. Another thing, the pandemic has obviously showed us, you know, that it's important to be able to have flexibility on how we work. And again, with that, you know, we need a user to be able to seamlessly work remotely and offer accessibility anywhere.
Excellent. Dan?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, talk to your vendors. I talk with buy-side and sell-side firms all the time. They say, yeah, this all sounds great, but there's no way, fill in the blank, market data vendor, OMS, EMS provider, portfolio, whoever it is going to play ball with this. And I'm telling you, you've got LSEG and ICE on the call today. You know, if you want to talk to Charles River, you want to talk to FactSet, you want to talk to Bloomberg, all of these guys are open to it. They want to have the conversations with you. They want to play nicely with others. It's been kind of a seismic shift from a sentiment standpoint. And so talk to your vendors, tell them that this is important, bring them along for the journey. My second bit of advice would be start small. Don't try to solve all your problems. You know, focus on something where you can have a real demonstrable business impact and impact on your users quickly. Measure it, do a victory lap, and move on to the next one. And third is simply that this doesn't have to be, doesn't have to be a very big, expensive journey. This is something that you can have in days or weeks, not months or years. And so it's a very attainable thing. And anybody, you know, it's May 19th. People can be chalking up victories, you know, before their kids are back from summer break, even if you haven't started on your journey now. So I think that would be my closing thought.
Thank you. And AJ, a few words from you.
Sure. Yeah, I think I just want to reiterate the point that Dan's making about starting small. You can convert users. So instead of thinking about converting your systems, you can think about focus on 10 people, 10 users, and unify their experience, make their workflow seamless. Now you have users who are advocates, and throughout the organization, they can show others how they're able to use it, and that's kind of how it spreads. So thinking about, you know, breaking down your organization, thinking about all your users and focusing on user by user, converting the users, versus thinking about I have all these different systems that are legacy, et cetera. It can be overwhelming, and thinking about how you completely convert all the various use cases, that's going to be harder. But yeah, it's pretty amazing how fast you can do things if you focus in on users. I think there's always, like when you have a new tool in your toolkit, there's a risk that you're going to overuse it. So you need to have balance. You don't want to, we talked about decomposition a lot. You don't want to overly decompose things. You want to decompose them in a way that makes sense. You want to be thoughtful about when you should pick desktop integration versus server-side integration. You should continue to do server-side integration for many use cases. And at the end of the day, you just pick the right solution for your users. I mentioned unifying the monitoring, so that's really important. It's kind of the flip side of unifying the user experience. It's just got to unify your ability to see your environment across all the different tools that are being used. I didn't mention governance, but governance is something that's important for you to be able to scale and continue to have an excellent user experience. So you can do governance across many different aspects, UX, architecture, compliance, privacy. And to scale this, there's a concept from the book, Building Evolutionary Architectures, called fitness functions. So, initially you can start with with governance and reviews, but you can run continual functions in your environment to make sure that you're moving in the direction that you want to.
Okay, thank you. Our hour is up, and it leaves me to thank you all very much indeed for sharing your expertise and your experience today. Thank you too to Refinitiv and LSEG Business, ICE and Ensemble by COSAC for sponsoring today's webinar. It's been a great conversation. Before we close up, just a few A-Team Group items that may be of interest. If you scroll down your screen to the additional options, you can register for our next Trading Tech webinar, Deploying Market Infrastructure and Managed Services. You can find out about A-Team Connect, our professional platform that you can also use to run webinars and events, or you can download our Trading Regulations Handbook 2021. We've got a new one of those coming up soon. So that said, that's it for today. So thank you again to Franita, AJ, Scott, and Dan, and thank you to all of you who've taken part in the webinar. Please complete our feedback form, as we are always keen to hear your views and improve our products. Meantime, thanks again and goodbye.